Hey guys, I'm Jess and today we're going to be making tofu. So I love tofu. I'm not vegetarian, I'm not vegan, but I do like to turn to tofu when I'm looking to reduce my meat consumption, and also because tofu is really delicious and really versatile. We have silken, we have medium, and we have firm. I'm gonna show you tofu preparations that you can add to your weeknight or weekend meals. The first thing that we're going to make is spiced tofu fries. And so you might say to me, Jess, you're crazy. What is a tofu fry? And you know, it all depends what your definition of fry is. To me, a fry means a certain shape, that long, skinny fry shape. And it also means something that is crunchy and crisp on the outside and tender on the inside. So we can achieve that with tofu. And so I'm using medium firm tofu because you want it to be firm enough that it can get crispy on the outside, but soft enough so it can be pillowy and tender on the inside. So here we have this block of tofu, and when you are baking tofu, an important thing is to soak up the excess water. Here we have our tofu. I've sliced it in half like this, and now I'm just going to create these little fry shapes. And so when we drain it, I like to use a dish towel. Obviously you want a dish towel like this that doesn't have any fuzz on it. Just lay the tofu on top. You can also use paper towels. I like a dish towel because it's a little more eco-friendly. And I'm just gonna let this soak up for about half an hour. In the meantime, I'm going to make my spice blend. And so here I have salt, smoked paprika, cayenne, garlic powder, and onion powder. And I was inspired by spiced curly fries. I mean, it's my favorite type of fry, but you can use any kind of spices you want, any spice blend that you really love or you want to experiment with, or you can even just use salt. I mean, those are some of the best fries too. Now we're ready to assemble. So I have my tofu here. It is done draining. You can see that it has some wet marks. And if you're short on time, just use whatever time you have. You know, if you have 15 minutes, if you have 20 minutes, if you have an hour, that might be even better. But don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Whatever time you have, drain it. If you don't have time, you could even do this without draining. It's not a big deal, except it'll be a little moisture inside, but who cares? So I have my spice blend, and I'm just going to put this on a plate like so. Here I have an assembly line. I have my tofu fries, I have the spice blend, and then I have a baking sheet covered with parchment paper. And I really like parchment paper in this because we're actually not using oil with this recipe, and that's not by intention, it's just that it doesn't need oil. And so I think an important thing to remember when you're trying to cook healthy is that some things just don't need oil. You just put oil because you think, oh, I pop it in the oven, I'm roasting something, it needs oil. But sometimes that's not the case. So parchment is great because it's naturally non-stick as opposed to foil. So here I have my fries. And so I've already preheat my oven to 450. And so what we're going to do is we're going to roast these at that high temperature, flipping on each side. And we're going to change the time a little bit for each side because what we want to do is we want to crisp up every side. So the surface that's on the bottom of this pan, that's the surface that's going to get crispy. But it's not going to be equal time on every side because remember, the longer that it's in the oven, the drier it's going to get. And so we know that food gets crispy because moisture is escaping that surface. And so the longer it's in the oven, the less moisture is going to be inside and the less time it needs to crisp up. Science. All right, so I'm just going to cake these in my spice blend. Be very generous. Whoever said tofu didn't have flavor? I'm gonna pop these in the oven at 450. And so the first side is gonna go for 15 minutes. Next side, 12 minutes. Next side, 10 minutes. And then the last side, 8 minutes. And so I like this method because it's pretty hands-off. You could do other things in the kitchen. You can finish cooking dinner or lunch or do whatever you need to do around the house. Just set a timer. All right, and here we have our tofu fries. So take a look. So your timing might be a little different depending on how wet your tofu is and what you're using as your coating. But just keep an eye on it and keep your nose out for it too, because one of the first signs that something's going bad is that you can smell it. Here we are, we have our spiced tofu fries, and I love this hard crust. I see that it's really well seasoned, so that is my favorite. And then I'm just gonna open it up here, and you can see the interior got sort of airy and pillowy, and that's just what we wanted. It's really good. It tastes like those curly fries of Naive, the one from that place that I'm not going to mention, but you totally know what I'm talking about. And the inside, it's not quite like potato, but it's very similar in that it's soft, it's pillowy, it's tender, and you know, the fry is all about the contrast between the crusty outside and the soft inside. And this totally has that. Plus, you get a little shot of protein too. Next, we're going to make sort of a variation on a sloppy joe. You can call it a sloppy jess if you want. You don't have to. Might be a little weird. But I'm over here starting by the sink because the first step that we're going to do is we're going to drain our tofu. And so I'm using firm tofu here because you want something with a little bit of a firmer texture because you're kind of simulating the taste of meat. So here I have my block and I'm just going to crush it in this colander here directly into the sink. So just crumble it like this. And then I'm going to take some salt. It will flavor the tofu and it'll also help the tofu release more water, and that's also going to give it a little bit more of a meaty texture. I'm just going to let this sit for 20 minutes directly in the sink so all of that water can release directly down the drain. While that's draining, we can go ahead and cook the meat. So today I'm going to be using bison, and bison is awesome because it has this really nice robust flavor, even more robust than beef really, but it's actually lower in fat. And so I do something kind of sneaky. I buy my bison in these burger patty forms. And what that allows me to do is I can portion out my meat. So if I don't want to eat a pound of meat that night, I could just portion out 1 patty's worth, 2 patties worth, and I don't have to feel obligated to eat all of the meat that comes in the package. You just want to make sure that you're getting meat that is just raw meat. It's not pre-cooked, it's not pre-seasoned, it's just the meat itself in an individual form. You always want to season your meat. Season as you go. And I just want to spread it out, and then I'm not going to mess with it because we want that browning to form. And when you mess with it too much, you're not going to get that browning. Now I have some nice browned bits. I'm going to turn this down and just put it in a bowl here for later. We're gonna add some onion. Whew. onion. And we want to get a little bit of color on this because color is flavor, and we are going to want that in our sloppy Jess or sloppy Joe. I don't know. Would you say sloppy Jess at home? I would, but I don't know about you. All right, again, we want to season. Always want to season as we go. It might seem like a lot of salt, but when you're seasoning as you go, it really permeates into the food, and that's what makes it taste flavorful instead of salty. If you add all of your salt at the end, that's when it's going to taste salty because it isn't integrated into the food. You weren't seasoning as you went. The onions have started to take on a little bit of color, so now I'm going to add the garlic. And you always want to add garlic a little after the onion because garlic burns easily, and so you don't want to expose it to as much heat. Burnt garlic tastes bitter, and you know, it's not a huge deal if you burn your garlic. I burn my garlic all the time, but if you can help it, kind of stagger your aromatic cooking. Now that these have taken on a good amount of color, what I'm going to do is basically deglaze the pan with all of my good sloppy Jess ingredients, sloppy Joe, slides, whatever you want to call it. So I have ketchup here, and when you're buying ketchup or barbecue sauce, which I'm going to add in a little bit, try to look for condiments that don't have high fructose corn syrup. This just has sugar. And so you see what I'm doing is I'm kind of picking up the brown bits on this pan. That was barbecue sauce, and then I have Worcestershire sauce. And then last I put a little bit of mustard. I like Chinese mustard because it has a little sort of nose tingling kick, but you can use any mustard. Now that's all mixed, and so I'm going to put in my bison, and I'm going to put in my salted crumble tofu. And I like to put about equal parts, so I'm probably gonna have a little bit of extra. I'll just save it for something else. You can put in eggs. Same sort of idea with eggs too, because if you mix tofu and eggs or tofu and bison, what you do is stretching your meat. And honestly, you don't really notice because if you have strong flavors like everything that's in this sloppy Jess, then it's all gonna blend in together anyway. The tofu is gonna take on the flavor of the bison, and you won't know the difference. After I stir this up a little bit, I'm going to add the last ingredient, which is tomato paste. And I like to add it at the end because I like to see how everything came together, and then I use the tomato paste as kind of the last piece of the puzzle to say, okay, so how wet do I want it to be? How saucy? Is there enough flavoring in here? And you know what, at this point everything is cooked, so you can definitely go ahead and taste and customize it to your liking. I'm gonna turn this on low and just let all of those flavors meld for about 10 minutes. And here we go. I like potato buns because they're a little softer, and so this is soft meat and you want a soft bun. Otherwise, if your bun is too hard, then it's just gonna squish all the meat out. And so I hollow them out a little bit just so you can get some more of the good stuff in there. How sloppy do we want this? Extra sloppy. Let's give it a try. This is the most beautiful sloppy Jess I've ever seen. All right, there you go. First of all, it tastes like 100% meat. You would not know that there was tofu in there because it's all melted in there. You got the great flavor of all the sauce, of the bison. I like that little fresh crunch of onion. It's sweet, it's savory, it's meaty, but it's also not too meaty. You don't need all that meat. It's awesome. Sloppy Jess. last thing that we're going to make is dessert. And so when it comes to dessert with tofu, you already have a leg up because tofu already has a richness to it, a creaminess, almost a custard-like quality. So all you need to do is add some sugar and add some flavoring and you're good to go. And so what's cool about this is that you can sort of customize what you want to use. You can use fruit, you can use chocolate. Today I'm going to be using coconut. So I have some coconut milk here and I'm going to use 3/4 of this can. And then I have some coconut sugar. You can also use regular sugar, you can use honey, maple syrup. You just want to make sure that whatever you're using, your sugar is going to dissolve because you don't want that graininess in the tofu. The whole point of this tofu pudding is that it's nice and smooth. So I'm gonna add some of this coconut sugar in here into the coconut milk. It's gonna be super coconutty. And then we're just gonna dissolve this over the stove. All right, this is starting to simmer away and I just wanna make sure that the sugar is dissolved. And then I'm gonna turn down the heat and let it cool before I add it to the tofu. We have our sweetened coconut milk, and so all I'm gonna do is I'm going to add it to the Vitamix here. And then I have our silken tofu, and you want to get silken tofu as opposed to soft tofu because that's going to give you the smoothest, silkiest texture. And so this is the same kind of tofu that's in miso soup, those little cubes. And then all I'm going to do is just whiz it up. And then give it a little taste. It's really good. Actually, you get the coconut flavor in this, but you also get the soy flavor. Something that gets lost when we talk about tofu is that soy has flavor. Think about soy milk. Soy milk has flavor. And so, you know, we think, oh, tofu, it's so bland. It's not bland if you're paying attention. And so actually my grandfather was a chef in the US Army. But by the time I came around, he wasn't really cooking much. But his specialty was custard, egg custard. Wally sees a squirrel outside. Now I'm just gonna pop these into the fridge so the tofu can cool off, firm up, and set up a little more. So I just took these out of the fridge. They've been chilling for 2 hours. It's dark out now. But as you can see, they firmed up a little. They're always gonna have a little bit of a jiggle, but they're a little more solid. And that's what you want for this kind of custardy pudding effect. So now what we're going to do is I'm just gonna dress it up a little bit, give it a little texture. I went all in on this coconut flavor. I have coconut milk, I have coconut sugar, and why not? We're going to put some toasted coconut flakes on top. I love coconut. And I think it's a good complement to soy because it lets the soy flavor come out. The nice thing about this too is that you are in control of how sweet you want it. So you can make it more desserty or you can make it a little less sweet and then it's something that you could even have for breakfast. I mean, it has so much protein in it, calcium, iron. The tofu itself is low in calories, low in fat, so you can definitely eat it like you would yogurt. You know, you could put fruit on it, granola, almond butter, whatever you like to put in your breakfast. And so I have some star fruit here, just because they're cute. That's our tofu coconut pudding. All right, I'm gonna have some. Wally's here, but I don't think he realizes that this isn't his thing. Where were you when we were cooking bison? So I tasted it before, I had an idea of what the flavor would be. But here you can see it's stiffened up a little bit and it's just so smooth and it's a little cold, it's refreshing. It's just slightly sweet and I love the texture from the coconut. It also gives it that nice roasty, toasty, nutty flavor. So good. And my kind of dessert. So that's it. We have our spiced tofu fries, we have our sloppy Jess with bison and tofu, and we have our tofu coconut pudding. I had an awesome time making this video, and I hope this, kind of opens your eyes to the possibilities of tofu, whether it's silken, it's medium firm, it's firm, you bake it, you pan fry it, you whiz it up in the blender. You could do so much with tofu, and I hope this gives you a little bit of inspiration. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please like it down below and subscribe to my channel. I am a new YouTuber. Every time I'm making a video, I'm learning more and more, so I really appreciate your support, your encouragement, and I can't wait to see you again. Bye. You know what would be awesome in this? Pickled jalapeno. I'll think about it.